What is going on, guys, and welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. I totally just started on a tangent and thought I was streaming. So, how's everyone doing tonight? Hey, a bunch of people that's already in the chat. We got Dr. Wilson Magic, Fintime, Miss Luke's Worker Fox, Savecki's Reef Belgium, Robert's Reef, My Opinion, Dr. Wealth and Magic, Reef Goes Death Mage. What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Sorry for the slight delay. I thought I was already live, and I wasn't. Claudius Reef Taylor, what's going on? So, how's everybody doing today? Hopefully good. Ravenclaw, just make sure you mute the YouTube in the background.
Yep, just done it.
Awesome, thank you. Studio Reef, welcome. Salty Shack, welcome. Joe's, Reef with O, what's going on, guys? We got Nick from Aquarium Cab Solution. I'm just going to drop the Discord link one more time, just in case anybody wants to join the voice chat. So if anyone has Discord installed, you can install that. I haven't used DC's here for the Reef Boss holders. Okay, I believe it was Robert actually sent me an email today on that one, and he's suggesting that you can put it up on Shapeways and they could do like a print on demand. What I might actually do, because then I don't have to physically mail them out, and that seems like a solid plan. So I may actually work on that soon. I have to redo the model, but I might work on that soon. So thanks for the reminder, DC. I know you're checking in. Deano's Spin Time. Ken Ward. Dradikit. Pizza. I just ate pizza before the stream, actually. Okay, so today's topic was more around water changes or lack thereof. I know a lot of people don't like water changes. It's not their favorite thing. No one likes to haul the buckets, and I mean, if you have a big tank, it can be expensive. Just a bit of a initial kind of disclaimer. Nano tank, I would still recommend doing water changes, right? If you have a little, your 20, 30 gallon tank, a 5-gallon water change isn't a big deal. It's easy to do, and it's honestly still probably one of your cheaper, easier methods of nutrient export. Now, as your tank gets bigger, water changes can be more expensive. Wicked View of the Reef, why, thank you. Thanks, Steve. Now, again, if you're setting up a new tank and you're cycling a tank, same thing. You still want to do water changes, right? After your tanks, you don't want to do one in the beginning of your cycle, but once it's done, you want to make sure you get rid of all the nutrients that built up during your cycle. So it's something to kind of consider and keep in mind up front. What's going on, Aaron's Gaming? Dr. Welsh, Rico, Steve? Okay, so now the first thing that I just want to kind of talk about is just quickly go over the basics of the nitrogen cycle, since that's kind of what leads into the whole reason you guys are doing water changes. So if you have your tank, most people should know this, but it's a little backup plan if not. You got your little happy fish in your tank. You got your little fish poop and everything else, which turns into ammonia, which is NH3. And thanks for muting that, Deathmage. So NH3, so that's ammonia. That's the very first thing that's going to pop into your tank, and ammonia is very, very toxic. Now, so once you start getting your nitrifying bacteria, it's one bacteria strain is going to convert NH3 ammonia into nitrites, which is NO2. So that's still toxic, but it's less toxic than ammonia. So next, the denitrifying bacteria will turn into NO3, which is nitrate. And that's nitrates, or NO3, is one of the main things that people try and export because too much of it can be an issue or it can cause allergy and other types of stuff. Now, that's kind of like the basics of that. Now, on the flip side of things, you got your little kind of scales, which you got to balance it, right? So you have your input and your output. So your input can be your water. If you're using tap water, you can have ammonium phosphates in your tap water. So that could be, an issue right there. Doing water changes could actually be adding stuff to it. Check out my multicam. Yes, I bought a second webcam. Getting fancy. And an HD one. So now the biggest thing for most people is the food. So if you're putting a ton of food into your tank, that is another thing that adds a lot to your nitrates and phosphates. So now that's your inputs, right? If everything's in balance, then there's no need to do water change, right? If you're doing a water change, it's either to export nitrates, phosphates, like the bad stuff. Yep, Discord, I'll drop the link for that. So you're doing either a water change to add stuff or get rid of stuff. So small tank, if you're doing a water change to replenish your calcium alkalinity, that's a great way to do it. If you don't have a little nano pack full of SPS, a weekly water change is likely all you need. So keep that in mind, right? When we're talking about reducing water changes, this is mainly on larger tanks that are established. So I just want to throw that out there because honestly, it's cheaper to just do water changes on a nano. Okay, so if we're either trying to get rid of excess nutrients in your tank that you've added, I'm discording. Perfect. So you either want to get rid of that, or you're trying to add stuff back in, like trace elements. Now, if you're adding trace elements through, could be your miracle mud, could be your Red Sea coral colors, or your aquaforest, or whatever. You're adding your trace elements back in. Okay, there's one less thing you need to worry about from the water. Now, go back to the main one. Okay, now on the flip side, for getting rid of your nutrients, you have two ways you can do it. So water change to add trace elements. So you can either get them through your water changes, or you can get them from dosing them. Now, to get rid of stuff, you got your natural way or your chemical way. So the natural way would be using like a refugium, which could be, your big ball of Chaeto. It could be a turf scrubber. It could be a Chaeto reactor. There's all kinds of different natural ways. But you're basically growing algae, and the algae is going to absorb that nitrates and phosphates, and you're exporting it that way, right? It gets absorbed by the plants. You take that out of your tank, you've removed it. So that's one way you can do it. So if you have a big enough refugium or turf scrubber or whatever, then that alone can offset the need to do water changes. Now, on the other side of the coin, you could do it chemically. Herbert, welcome. And you could do that through stuff for phosphates. You can use GFO, which is a very popular one. Or you could use just like lanthanum chloride, never tried that one, red sea no pox, all different ways. Now, those are going to get rid of your phosphates, but they're not going to touch your nitrates. So on the other kind of chemical side of things, you have, you can do carbon dosing. So now with carbon dosing, you got your bio beads, bio pearls, I call them. I've never used them. I'm personally not a fan of them because they can cause more havoc in your tank. And there's also stuff you can use like vinegar dosing or vodka dosing. So those are a few kind of different ways of doing it. But at the end of the day, it really just boils down to taking out more. If you have excess nutrients, you need to remove those, right? Whether it's a water change, chemically, naturally, is kind of the main thing, right? So things need to be in balance. If whatever's being absorbed by your tank equals what you're putting in, then you really have no need to do water change. If you're adding your trace elements and you're adding your calcium alkalinity. So again, with a small tank, do your water change. I mean, you're going to get your calcium, your alkalinity, you're going to remove nutrients, nice and easy. Now, another thing I wanted to throw out there with you're doing a water change, I've seen people get in trouble because most people think of a water change as the good thing that can reduce, there's something going wrong in your tank, let's do a water change, right? Like a lot of people think that. And when you do that, sometimes you can also be causing more troubles from doing too big a water change. So if you are, for instance, it can be throwing parameters out of whack. So if you keep your tank at, say, an alkalinity of 8, and you're using, like the reef crystals or the Red Sea's Pro Reef Coral Salt, and, you keep your alkalinity at 8, and you're dosing something with an alkalinity of 11 or 13. If you do a small water change, it's not going to affect it much, right? But if you do, a 50% water change, that can cause a big spike in your tank and throw up other stuff. So if you are doing larger water changes, you do really need to make sure the water you're adding matches the water, and or else it's going to cause issues. So kind of a few different ways to do it. Now, ReefDudes, what's going on? DM's Reef Tank, Steve. Herbertio Zarate. I apologize, I'm probably butchering that one. 98 watching, 27 thumbs up. If you guys are liking it, hit that thumbs up button. So I do have a bunch of people in the Discord, so if you guys want to chat, feel free. I'm kind of curious to hear if anyone in there whether you guys are actually doing water change and stuff. I'm at the point now where I do the odd one, and for the most part, I don't really do them to remove nutrients. I do it to vacuum my sand bed. Or if I got a little bit of something in there I want to suck out. So I use it more just as an easy way to do it. If you still don't want to do water changes, I mean, you can do your water change into a filter sock. Let your filter sock capture all those particles, right? And just kind of do a continuous one within your own tank. So that's like a really easy way of doing one without actually having to do a water change. I do my little water changes as I'm like cleaning my sand bed once in a while. So that's one of my biggest things. Now, one other type of way that some people will do it is do their bare bottom tank. Because, you don't really have much places for detritus and stuff to catch up. You can use crazy amounts of flow and let that go into your filter socks. I personally prefer sand, so I use that one. So I use sand, right? Now, the other argument is deep sand beds, too, can essentially create anaerobic bacteria and create nitrogen into nitrogen gas and kind of work it out that way. And it'll get rid of all your nitrates. So a few different kind of ways to look at it. So basically, yeah, water changes, you're either replenishing stuff or you're removing stuff. So those are two different things. So if you can deal with that balance by adding stuff. If you're dosing your calcium alkalinity, either with a doser, you can, calc water people do it. You can be doing it. Calcium reactor, yeah, dosing pumps, calcium reactor, like those are all different ways of adding those nutrients back in, right? So if finding that balance really is the key to it. Now I know some of you guys have kind of ventured to not doing that. So if anyone does want to hop on and share what you guys are doing, what's working for you, feel free, because I see a lot of people in the Discord hiding on mute. Now, one other thing to consider too, if you are doing a water change, for the sake of getting rid of nutrients, if you say you have a nitrates of 30 and you do a 5% water change, it's actually going to barely put a dent in it. So that's another thing to consider, right? Like, water changes are not a very effective way at reducing nutrients at all, unless you do large ones. And then on the large ones, they can get expensive and it can affect your tank. So it's definitely something you guys got to consider on that side. What's going on, Fin Time? What's going on? PR Fish Girl, My Reef Life, welcome. Lee and Mandy Battersby, welcome. So currently on my tank, I'm utilizing a Chedu reactor, which has been working very well. I still have nitrates. My nitrates has always been a little bit higher in my tank. I haven't really worried about it. They've always been like 15-ish, but corals are happy, things are looking good. So another thing too, a lot of people try and shoot for next to nothing, and removing too much is actually a bad thing. You never want to have zero phosphates. You don't want zero nitrates, because you can actually starve your corals. Corals need those nutrients to survive, right? So you want them to be low, but you never want them to be zero. So that's something to consider. Kevin EVH Vlogs, welcome, Kev. Mr. Infamous, who else have we got in here? El Chow. Dino's Reef, welcome, welcome. Aquarium Cabinet Solutions, Aaron's Aquarium, welcome, guys.
What's happening?
Just reducing some water changes. How about you?
Don't do water changes. Oh, to be honest, I do. I do water changes on my nano.
Yeah, on the nano, it's worth it. I would 100% do them on the nano. It's easier than dosing and worrying about too much of the little things on that one.
It's easy, innit? Obviously, like you said, I do things in liters. A couple of liters. And that's it, job done.
Yep. Now, do you do it on your large tank?
Get it.
So, yeah, nano tank, 100%. I mean, it's more work not to do water changes on a small tank. It's just so easy on such a small water volume. But on, a couple 100-gallon tank...
difficulty is with nanos is the nutrient export, innit? Because obviously with sump tanks and stuff like that, you've got the ability to add a refugium, add reactors for like what you were saying earlier, vodka dosing, carbon, biopearls and stuff like that. But when it comes down to nanos, it's a little bit more difficult to put reactors in and unless you've got like an all-in-one system where you've got a sump in the back. It's one of those. So sometimes it is just easier just to do a water change because you can prepare water and everything in your home, in a small bucket, fill it up with RO, get a small power head in there, a heater, or like I do, I boil the water in a kettle. So it's quick, and then, get your water ready.
What do you mean in a kettle? I'm curious now.
So obviously, a normal household kettle.
Yeah. You boil it.
My RO water, and I boil it, so I don't have to put an aquarium heater in. I just boil the water, and so I may, say if I'm just doing a small water change or something, I may just do one kettle full of water to, so say for example, 1/3 boiled water to 2/3 cold water.
Yep.
So you get that, that right temperature. Just chuck that in. Water's already at temperature that quickly. Bang the salt in, little power head. You've got your water mixed up in the space of 5 minutes. Obviously however long it takes your water to clear with whatever salt you're using. That's the longest time you gotta wait. So that's what I do.
Never thought of boiling the water.
Yeah, well, it's, you're heating it slowly with an aquarium heater, so why not just stick it in the kettle and boil it?
Yeah. No, exactly.
Well, you're boiling it, aren't you, as well? So if there is anything potentially in there, you're killing it. Because you're boiling the water. So I just boil a kettle of RO water, stick it in, bish bash bash, water change. You can do a full water change on a nano tank in the space of 10 minutes. That's from preparing your salt water to changing the tank.
So that's what you do on your nano tank, right?
That's what I do the nano tank. But the big tank, no way will I do a water change in that, because it will literally mean I've got to do multiple hours of overtime just to keep the tank running, because salt would cost me a fortune. When I was water changing, when I did the first version, I was going through a salt bucket per month.
Yeah.
So that's like 60-70 pounds per month.
Just in water changes.
Yeah, and it's nothing. And now that I'm using Triton, I'm using a set of Triton solutions every 6 months, so that's 30 pounds every 6 months. That's 60 pounds a year. So whereas with salt, I was doing 60 pounds a month.
So you went from 60 pounds a month to 10 pounds a month.
Yes, in essence.
Yeah, so it makes pretty good, eh? Nice. So I haven't used Triton per se itself, obviously, but similar.
It's a dosing solution.
It is.
You know, you can whichever one you want to use.
Now, how's your tank now? Do you have any issues with nitrates, phosphates, or anything on yours?
I've had a little spike in phosphates recently because a fish died and I left it because I couldn't be bothered getting it out.
Lazy reefing at its finest.
Oh yeah, it was there, and it was the choice of getting my arms in and everything else. And obviously, I've just had my Triton results back, and you know, it was said about hand cream, you know, polluting my tank with zinc and stuff like that. So I just thought, I can't be bothered.
I'm just gonna add too many bad things.
It's food for the cleanup crew, in it. So there's a couple of hermit crabs and stuff in there, and snails and stuff, so they can have it. But obviously, you know, I get a bit of a spike off the back of that. And I didn't. What I should have done was added more bacteria to the tank, but I didn't. So, you know, in essence, in return for that, I ended up getting a bit of a phosphate spike. Within 10 days, my phosphates jumped from 0.09 to 0.21.
Yeah.
In the space of 10 days.
That's from your fish that bit the dust?
Potentially, yeah.
Yep.
Obviously, I feed a lot of flake food as well. So flake food is very high in phosphates. So it's just one of those where all of that compiled, you know, equals a lot of algae. Especially because I've introduced T5s as well to the tank now as well. So I've got T5s and LEDs. It's just a brewing pot for crap.
Oh, nice. I actually hardly ever feed flake food, or pellets for that matter. I feed almost exclusively frozen and some nori, which I find helps quite a bit. There's a lot less excess nutrients in it, or at least it gets eaten up faster than that.
Well, I used to do that as well, but it's just when you look into the values and the content. Don't get me wrong, you know, I've started feeding a bit of frozen as well, just to give a bit of variation.
Yeah.
But I was trying to obviously fatten up an Achilles tank at the time, and the protein content of flake food in comparison to the protein content of frozen food, you know, you're looking at 50+% protein in flake, whereas with frozen you're looking at 10% protein.
Yeah.
So you've got to feed like 4 times more frozen food than you do flake to get, you know, to achieve the same, you know, to the same amount of protein, which obviously is more pollutant. You know, there's more pollutants in that, if you think about it that way. But
that's a good chunk.
So that's why I feed it. Yeah, that's why I feed a lot of flake.
Now,
just high in phosphorus.
Exactly. Now, another thing that will actually add to a lot of nutrients, filter socks. So I've always used filter socks because I like my water like crystal clear, and they do a great job of filtering out all the particles in the water. Now, the only thing is, if you don't change them often enough, you're just providing a trap to catch all that detritus and extra stuff in your water to break down faster. Where if it flows through your system, I mean, in theory, it's more likely for a protein skimmer and other stuff to catch it and remove it from your system, or little creatures to get it, right? Where if you're trapping it, that necessarily won't happen. So I haven't done this yet, but I've been thinking about getting one of those roller mat style ones, like the Claris is the one I'm debating. You guys have it in the UK, it's not in the North America yet, but it's supposed to be coming soon. So I'm debating the Claris or like one of those roller mats to catch all the particles. I'm actually really considering getting one of those when they come out in a couple months here. I think that would be a good one.
I think I don't know. I'm not
in the
game on, but
that's fine.
I wouldn't put money into it.
We'll see. I'm debating it. My end goal here is to reduce having to clean the glass at the end of the day. But by removing those nutrients before they have a chance to break down, it's going to be less nutrients, less stuff to feed those little bits of algae. So that's kind of one of my side goals that I'm working towards.
I have actually seen a demo of that Clarity.
How'd you like it?
When I was at to be honest, you know, it does look like a pretty good product, because what they did was, because obviously it's a D&D product, and they took some reef rods, put it in the water so that it had to pass through the Clarity unit, and it stopped it all. And obviously Reef Rise is quite fine.
Yeah.
So it did do a good job. It did do a good job and stuff of it. So I think, you know, they have like, you know, anti backup stuff and all that lot. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, I'm happy with filter floss. You know, I like the idea of it, but again, you know me with certain types of automation, it's like, do I really need it? You know what I mean? Do I need to spend that money on it?
So part of, for me, the whole like quote unquote lazy reefer. I mean, I love my tech toys. I love automating things. So to me, things that reduce me putting effort into it as a thing. I was laughing in the chat. Daily Reefing Jeff, he has some on his tank, and he's really been doing it. I think he's actually one of the ones that's inspired me to try them. And someone in the comments said, do they smell or do they stink? And he's like, nope, not at all. I was laughing too because I asked the exact same question when I was debating. I'm like, is there any smell from this thing rolling up? But from all the people I've asked, everyone said this is not an issue. So that was one of my
You would think so, wouldn't you?
You would.
You know, with all that decaying food and waste and everything just hanging there. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So that was one of my worries. Apparently it's not an issue from the few people I asked that own one and seem to love them. So potentially. I haven't ran one yet, but it's on my considered list. So there's a lid if you're worried about it, but he doesn't use them. Okay, perfect. No smell. So that's one of my heavily considerations for future upgrades, or at least when I do Rev 2 of the tank, I might work one of those in.
Can you Infamous Aquatics, by the way, Dev?
I cannot. Infamous, are you in here? He was in here. I think it actually looks
I can hear it.
Oh, he's muted himself. There's a mute sign beside him. Infamous, unmute yourself if you want to talk.
You must have muted him because I'm listening to him perfectly fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah, unmuted. Boom. There you go.
Boom.
Boom. Welcome.
Oh, what's going on, guys?
I put you in the sin bin.
Yeah, show me how you really feel, Dev. Tell me how you really feel.
You made you go and stand the guitar with your nose against the wall.
He's like, oh man, this guy Infamous is in here. We're just gonna
cut him off. All right. Well, love is back. Welcome, guys. Now, Infamous, on that, I was talking to you earlier, and you said you have not done a water change on your baby beauty, your 16-gallon nano. So, how long has that been going water changeless?
To be honest, just about a month. It's nothing crazy, but the only thing I'm worried about is managing the trace elements and everything like that, alkalinity and so on and so forth.
Are you doing anything to add those back in?
Not just yet. The demand for it isn't there yet.
Try to.
The demand there isn't there for it yet.
Yeah.
But there is, I do have some plans to take care of that.
Yeah.
But one of the things I do though to manage my export is just not have much import. I actually have zero plans of adding fish.
Well, that's nice and easy then.
Yeah, keep it simple. But mostly it's because I'm a nomadic reefer, you know? So I am gone from my tank a month at a time sometimes.
So your tank is 100% fishless? It's just coral tank?
It's coral. Coral inverts, just a cleanup crew to clean up the glass, hermit crabs to get anything that's in between the Pecani rock.
Okay, so you got some little melts in there. Then do you feed your corals at all, or you just let them photosynthesize?
Mostly photosynthesize. I haven't even seen my tank in 5 days.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, I mean, as little as I get to see it, I might feed it coral grub from Aquamax every once in a while. But other than that, I just turn the lights on, watch the alkalinity, and the moment it starts looking like it needs some help, then I'll start dosing. But that's like the next step I'm on is figuring out what I want to dose. I know there's Triton, ATI, Aquaforest, Purple Pond.
Yep.
There's
he's over that. He's over.
I got you, Michael. There's like several options that can help me manage those elements, right? Because the problem with water changes is it's to export nutrients and import nutrients, right?
Yeah.
So you're exporting the nitrogen, letting the whole nitrogen cycle go, and you're exporting what remains, and you're importing the
trace elements, calcium, alkalinity.
Calcium, exactly. So I'm managing. Actually, I was talking to Michael about this, like when I was just setting up Baby Beauty again, and I'm managing my whole nitrogen cycle by not even having any real livestock. But now I'm at the point where I need to find the dosing solution. So I'm kind of torn between those 4 programs.
Yep.
Triton is just so hard to get in the States, you know? So that's my thing. I wouldn't mind, to be honest. In my experience, doing water changes is not a big deal. I have no problem doing them. You know, especially on a nano tank, what's a 1 gallon water change once a week?
Exactly. Michael,
but
10-pound super chat. 100 people watching, 49 likes. Show Dev some love and hit that like button. Much appreciated, buddy. Thank you for the super chat. And if you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button, because it makes me happy.
Yeah, legit. If you don't.
So sorry to interrupt, but I was excited. Thanks, Michael.
No worries, man. No worries. So I'm just torn because there are programs, right? So you have like the Red Sea Foundation. That's like 10 additives.
Yeah.
And then you got something like ATI Essentials is 3, Triton is 4. I don't know how many Aquaforce is. So I'm at that point where I'm trying to decide. But to be honest, I don't really know if there's, other than how many bottles there are, I don't really know if there's too much of a difference between each one of them.
Honestly, I think a lot of the brands are similar. I mean, I'm sure there's little differences, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're dosing calcium alkalinity, your amino acids, some of the trace elements, right? So it's up to you to test different brands. I've been using Red Sea Coral Colors on my main tank for a long time, and just recently I swapped, just for fun, a couple bottles of the Aquaforce ones just to see if I notice a difference. So we'll see. Just a quick question in the chat. Someone's asking, who's this Aaron's gaming guy? That's my Careers Aquarium. And if you guys enjoy Fortnite, he is playing that game, streaming it daily. So you know where to go.
You know, I just realized that I'm logged in on the wrong account. That's my fault. That wasn't me trying to be promotional.
Plug.
Don't worry.
I swear straight up.
I threw one out there for you, buddy.
I keep meaning to change it. I'm going to change it.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's all good.
Yep.
It's all good.
Yeah, okay, so NATO saying going back to BRS 2-part with Funamarine Trace. I honestly think a lot of them are super similar, to be honest. Claudius, where's the link to join? I will drop the Discord link for you. Let me grab it.
Because even, I'm not sure about this, but even a few years ago, I heard of people in Houston that were just not even doing water changes, and all they were dosing was 2-part plus magnesium when needed.
Yep.
And they weren't even managing their trace elements. So seeing people have success with that, granted, I'm not saying do that, but it leads me to believe that really we're competing for just like the slight edge in coral growth and health.
So honestly, at the end of the day, it's 99% of people doing a water change is because they're trying to get rid of nitrates and phosphates. So that's kind of one of the biggest things, right? Now, I mean, I'm sure there is other nutrients, other type of stuff in there, but those are the big 2 that most people target, and that's the main reason. So if you have, you know, your refugium or you have something else, and like you said, you're not to export what you're putting in, but in your case, you're barely feeding your tank, right? Because it's mainly coral.
If that.
Yeah, so you're not really importing much. And assuming you're using RODI water, again, then your water's going to be stripped free of all that other stuff, right? So there's going to be less of a need right there.
Exactly. But I will say this.
Can I just say 1 second, just so that we're just not confused? Reef Ghost has just put here. Here's the thing, though. No one but Triton is offering no water changes. Triton doesn't offer no water changes. Triton don't advise no water changes. We've adapted that to say we don't have to do water changes, but they don't actually advise don't do water changes. They do advise do periodic water changes.
I mean, I still do water changes, right? And I mean, my big excuse is I like to vacuum my sand bed once in a while. So whenever I do that, I mean, you could do it straight into a filter sock and not even do water change, right? And just let it refilter to itself. But I mean, I still see benefit in doing little ones, right? I'm not going to do a giant one, but I still do like a couple % one every once in a while. And I use that as an excuse to vacuum my sand bed.
And that's honestly what I'll probably be doing because when I am gone for a month at a time, I actually plan on doing, since I don't usually leave for more than a month, I plan on doing small water changes once a month just to clean the sand bed.
Yeah.
And with that said, the little bit that I, because I have no fish and I don't really feed, I also every once in a while put some beneficial bacteria in the tank. I'll just in case, just to give it a little boost.
No, exactly. Now, okay, so on the bacteria note, one of the main thing that's absorbing a lot of stuff in your tank is the bacteria, right? It's the bacteria that takes your ammonia and goes to nitrate, and then that to nitrate. So that's kind of one thing to consider, right? Now, if you look, I was actually talking to Nixon, I think you're in here, but we were having a conversation earlier about this, how, you know, there's bacteria in your tank which will feed the zooplankton, and the zooplankton the macrofauna will feed on the zooplankton. It's kind of almost the start of the base of the food chain in your tank. Deathmage, what camera to use? I have a Logitech C922X. It's a 1080.
So do I.
There you go. Actually, guys, got a second one, so I have my desk cam as well now for when I want to demonstrate stuff. So it's good. It's been solid. Back to Cyber March. Happy little baby.
Something I got from Nick though was he was talking about like several months ago how your bacteria can crash if you go fishless. And that's why I actually dose a little bit of beneficial bacteria periodically.
Yeah. So, like, at a certain point, your bacteria needs something to feed off of, right? And if you're not giving it food, then that's something that can make it crash. And that's on the flip side. I mean, like, same thing when people do nitrogen dosing, or carbon dosing, sorry. Like, if you're adding that vodka or that no-pox or vinegar or whatever, or bile pearls, whatever it is, you're putting something in your tank that's releasing sugars or whatever it is to feed that bacteria. That's like one way how they grow their bacteria cultures, right? And then that in turn will feed on nitrogens and other stuff in your tank.
Hello?
Hey.
Sorry, I didn't get that last bit.
Okay. Basically just saying how, you know, carbon dosing and other things is basically feeding your bacteria in your tank so that it can grow and deal with higher loads from fishes and certain things in your tank. But like in your instance though, with a small nano tank, I mean, water changes are still not a huge deal in that when you're around, but in my experience, it's a lot of the people at the larger reefs that have an issue with it. Linneman Reefer, $5 super chat. Enjoying your show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for participating, and thank you very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. Just throwing this one out there. I'm going to be going to Reefapalooza in Orlando next month. So if any of you guys are going, make sure to find me and come say hi.
I think I'm very, very close to finalizing the fact that I'm going to be joining you in Macna as well.
Ooh, excellent. That's what I like to see.
Dang.
Yep.
Y'all gonna make me look up flights now.
It's a once in a lifetime event. Literally, for me personally, this is a once in a lifetime event that I've just got to attend.
I think you should come. It'd be fun to meet up.
Yeah.
Goose. Heck yeah, I think you should. I think you're almost committed. You almost sold yourself.
But with fish.
Exactly. Okay, Reef Ghost. So if your tank is wild and crazy with nutrients, how can you ever have enough bacteria to eat it? Okay, so wild and crazy with nutrients. Discord does not work. Arg. It should work, Terrence. If you download it, you should be able to click that link and join. They have an iPhone app, they have a computer app. I have them both installed. So give that one a whirl. Okay, so if you have enough nutrients, okay. If you have, honestly, you can use like the chemical ways, right? You can use, if it's phosphates you're getting rid of, you can use GFO, which can work almost too well. So quick disclaimer, I learned in my early days of reefing, too much GFO can be a bad thing. You can strip your water 100% clean of phosphates, which in turn can hurt your corals, because they still need phosphates, they still need nitrates. So you can actually be killing zooactyl and stuff on your coral if you're completely stripping it. So always use the stuff with caution, go slow, and work your way up slowly. So you have certain things you can do like that for like phosphates. So GFO, lanthanum chloride. I've never used lanthanum chloride, but lots of people say it works amazingly well. I have used GFO.
Lanthanum chloride, because I've actually based on my Triton test, I've actually overdosed lanthanum chloride because I was using that to maintain my phosphates rather than using GFO. And I have high levels of lanthanum chloride in my tank now. So just what I would suggest with lanthanum chloride is get your phosphates down, because it'll strip your phosphates very quick. Don't do it too quick, obviously. Get your phosphates down to a level where you want to be, then maintain with either, Rowaphos or some other form of GFO. Maintain with that. Don't do what I did and just maintain constantly with lanthanum, because it'll just build up and build up and build up.
Yep, exactly. Nope, great tip. Thanks for that one. Melanie's asking, how about ChemiPure Elite for phosphates in a nano? ChemiPure Elite actually works very well. I currently use that in my jellyfish tank, and it's something in the past I've used in pretty much all of my nanos, and it's been great for keeping the water clear as well as removing phosphates. So I have used it, and I did like it. I use Chemi-Free Blue, not Elite, but I believe they both remove phosphates, so. Daily reefing. I love lanthanum chloride, but need to understand what you're doing. Now, another thing to throw out there, in general, you should not be dosing and adding stuff to your tank that you don't have the capabilities of testing for. So you don't want to just blindly add stuff to your tank, because it could be building up, and it could cause issues down the road. So just...
Carbon dosing.
Yeah. So I've also learned my lesson with carbon dosing. Another one. I speak from wisdom of many experiments over the years. Yeah, so same goes with carbon dosing. Too much carbon dosing is trouble and cause hecticness in your tank. For instance, my yellow tang, after I raised my levels too quick when I was doing vodka dosing, you know, it's still a couple millimeters, but it was too fast of a thing, and like there's some like weird blotchy things he was getting, so I quit doing it and they went away. So I knew that was from the carbon dosing because it's the only thing I changed at the time. But as with any of these things, you know, go slow. If you buy a bottle, something that says dose 10 mils, dose 5. You know, a week later, maybe go to 6. A week later, go to 7. Like, just ease your way into it. Like, never rush anything in the reef. You know, just like anything you're into your system. Especially if you can't test in it. Proceed with caution. Agreed. Lanthanum chloride builds up. Hey, how's it going?
Just do me a favor, ReefDudes, as well. Just make sure that you don't have people muted like you did with Finger, because I've seen messages people saying that they've got no sound and stuff. So maybe it's just the fact that, you know, you might have them muted or something.
Good to know. I don't think I have. I'm just gonna quickly check. I didn't even know I had what the miss was, so I think everyone's good now. I don't see anyone muted. Everyone looks safe.
Hello?
Hey, how are ya? We can hear you there, Dino.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. All right, real quick. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to elaborate on the fact that I don't do water changes.
Mm-hmm.
Or I mean, the reason why I don't do water changes. So basically, my tank's been up for almost 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, like sand-wise, I added 4 inches of sand,
Mm-hmm.
and then I seeded it with live rock, and from there, you know, I let the nitrogen cycle kick in and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then once, you know, I had that, basically I started slowly adding fish. Now, you know, I have my moments where, you know, I'll have my nutrients like skyrocket, and whatnot, but basically, how can I say? I mean, basically, like I said earlier, I use LPS.
Yeah, so I think you're a little bit choppy there, but I think earlier you were saying you use your LPS, and a lot of your soft corals absorb a lot of nutrients in your tank.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I use LPS. I mean, just acknowledging the fact that LPS is one of the easiest or hardiest corals to basically sustain in the reef tank. So the photosynthesis, or depending on the photosynthesis or the rate of photosynthesis, you can kind of use that to your advantage. Or like if you have too much nutrients in the actual water column, you can actually use coral that can tolerate high nutrients, but at the same time get the photosynthesis. So just you know, just acknowledging that, I feel that has a lot to bring about it. And also, basically, I never disturb my sample.
Yeah.
I don't want to kill that.
You're a bit choppy there, Claudius. I think your connection's a little, your signal's a bit low. But yeah, so what I got out of that, you're saying like you don't disturb your sand bed. It sounds like you have a bit of a deeper sand bed, and that's for the most part been working for your tank. Cruz, $20 super chat. You're amazing. Thank you, Cruz. Much appreciated, buddy.
Got too much money, you Cruz.
Much appreciated. This is all going to the ReefDudes. Has got to make a bunch of videos at Reefpalooza Fund. So always appreciated, guys. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're gone again. Totally lost you. Thanks so much, Cruz, by the way. So just because you are a bit choppy now, I just want to dig into that a bit more. Download the app and then what? Alright, okay, I'll drop the link one more time for you. There, you should be able to click it again if you have it installed now and have an account. Now, what was I going to say? Okay, got that. So there's the link again for Discord. Anyone has it installed, it should join you to the chat. There's a bunch of people in here, so it should be working. Now, I watched actually a video a while ago, like one of Sanjay's tanks, I think. It's, to your point, it was mainly a softy tank. So, I mean, pretty easy. There's no big demand for corals right there. I'm not sure if he dosed it or not, but on the flip side, he says he hasn't done a water change in 5 years. So, obviously, you know, whatever he's using in there for his corals and everything else is absorbing those extra nutrients. So, the other thing, too, right, is to not overstock your tank. And if you have certain corals that do absorb it, great, or your refugium, whatever it is, but something in there to absorb those nutrients is, I mean, really the key what it is. Or not overfeeding your tank, but not overstocking your tank goes a long way, too, right? If you have tons of fish in there making tons of waste, you got to have some pretty hefty filtration, you know, whether it's your skimmer, whether it's your, you know, your giant fuge with an intense light on it, you just got to make sure that balances out. Have you tried this on a Mac? No, I have not, but I will later.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yep, you're coming in.
Good. All right, cool. So yeah, basically, like I was stating earlier, you know, I use LPS as a sponge. You know, basically, long story short.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I find that to kind of work as well. But the funny thing is, like my tank is extremely stocked, so I'm still to have nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, my filtration consists of my deep sand bed, and also that ReefDudes protein skimmer, and that CPR hang on the back.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
oh, you're chopping out again. Yeah, it totally cutting out again. But just to think I clear, the deep sand bed is one of your main things, and the other part was having corals that grow fast enough to absorb those nutrients. Reef, just want to get this one before it scrolls past me. Reefer Sajan. So, ReefDudes, what is so bad about a bit of nitrates and phosphates? Nothing. It's in moderation. My tank has nitrates of around 7 and phosphates of around 0.7. Those are actually not that high numbers. I mean, my nitrate's around 15, and my tank's happy. Like, everything you can see in the background's super happy, not an issue. And 0.7 isn't even that bad. Honestly, if your corals are happy, and you do not have an issue with algae in your tank, then it's probably not an issue. I mean, I hear some people, you know, when their nitrates up to like 60, 70, 80, like those are like really high. I mean, anything less than 20, I'm going to say 15 to 30 or less. Personally, I haven't really seen that as an issue. Well,
yeah, I don't know what's going on with this, but like I can hear it's like echoing in the background. Like I close out the YouTube just to see if it'll clear up or not, but now I can hear.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. Like I can hear you talking. But he not.
Yeah, yours is very choppy, at least on my end. Cruz, you say you're on your phone. I believe on the left-hand side it should show you a voice channel. Actually, here, let me check on my phone. Dude, sweet. I'm glad not the only one. Yep, no, you're definitely good. And honestly, to me, those levels aren't that high, so I wouldn't even worry about it. So, just quickly checking on my phone, because I haven't actually tried it, but... Alright, so if you're on your phone, if you click on the left-hand side at the top, you have a little button like a menu, a little hamburger, kind of 3 lines. And then you see the ReefDudes ones, and it'll say text channels, and there's a voice channel. You just click on the voice channel, and one's a live stream. So hopefully that works for your Cruz to get in. Stick with Skype for Google. I don't know if I can physically add you. I think you have to bring yourself in. Instant invite. Here, try this link for you, see if that works for you. That might invite you.
Is it better now?
Nah, you're still choppy. Yeah.
Yeah, Dev, you're right. That link brings you to the server.
Okay.
Voice channel. Or a mod can drag you down.
Oh, I can drag him in?
Mod on Discord. Admin.
Alright, let's try this. Doesn't...
But you have to appear in the server in order for that to happen.
Okay, invite to server. Yeah, I don't see... Or move. Oh, there you go. Boom! Alright, I think I added you in, Cruz. Hopefully.
You should see Cruz up in the top Wednesday live stream. For some reason, it's got a separate channel up. So Cruz, you got to go down a little bit and click on under voice channels Wednesday live stream, not Wednesday.
I just added him. I think Cruz, you should be good. I'm new to Discord too. I'm honestly only trying this because Google Hangouts has been very shoddy the last little while, where people have been dropping, cutting off, and I've seen it on tons of people's streams. So I wanted to try something different that's hopefully more reliable.
Well, the great thing is about this as well is once they're in, they're in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so next week there's no messing about. You know, it's just like right, just everybody go live.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So I'm adding Cruz, and he keeps kind of disappearing out of it. So, but you should see it up there. Add Terrence. Sounds like I can add you, Terrence. Can you add people, or do they have to?
Yeah. So basically, if you get Terrence's name and then add his name, so I'm assuming it's Terrence.
Yep.
And then it'll ask for a 4-digit pin, and then he's put it in the chat now, which is #8696.
Okay.
So add that.
So if I search for Terrence, nothing shows up though.
He should have. So basically, whatever his Discord name is, like mine's Aaron's Aquarium, and it'll ask for a 4-digit pin. And that's his 4-digit pin. I'm guessing what he's just put in the chat. 8696.
Invite people? Yeah, I don't know. When I search for people, nothing shows up. Let me try again. Terrence, relevant, recent, no results.
I can generate a link, but I don't think I can add people to it.
Yep.
I can invite people.
Yeah, I know.
I can invite people, but I can't add people.
Yeah, I don't see a way to add either.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Look at that. Loud and clear. Who was talking a little while ago that only had coral in the tank? That was...
Right, Terrence, I'm just going to put a link in the chat, see if this one works.
Okay. That was Claudius Reefer. His audio was a little bit choppy.
I can't because I'm on the wrong account. So
here, I'll add you. Type something.
I'll
give you the power. You got the power.
I'm just setting up a gaming live stream, so I'm on my gaming account.
Alright, so he should be good.
I'm here.
Welcome, Cruz. You made it.
Hey, cuz.
Sorry, it took a little bit of time. I'm trying to drive and navigate.
No problem.
Am I so choppy or not?
Oh, you're sounding pretty good right now.
All right, cool.
All right, so
yeah, basically what I was trying to say. Hopefully, I can get.
He's gone choppy again.
Oh man.
Hey, cuz. Well.
Oh, Reefkeeper, that's awesome. How dare someone call me during the live stream and keep me on the phone? Love it. Always good to have you, man. So, Cruz, what are your thoughts on eliminating or reducing or not doing water changes?
We haven't done one in the last 15 years.
15 years? There you go, guys. Now, what are your means of exporting the nutrients so you do not have to do water changes?
Well, we utilize a couple of things. Skimmer's one of them, which is, the staple that everybody's utilizing. We're utilizing a lot of bacteria to actually export a lot of the nutrients. We're also utilizing a lot of macroalgae and, sponges to actually get rid of some of the particulates in the water. So we do have a zone. And then, of course, with the mud substrate, may I say what we
go for it.
Okay. Yeah, we utilize miracle mud, and it's also known as a dehydrator type of filtration. And basically the anaerobic section where it's impacted,
being that it's very, very fine silt, creates an anaerobic zone for some of the anaerobic bacteria to some of the excess nitrates and actually break it down into nitrogen and oxygen. So we've eliminated a lot of that, a lot of the more nitrate side, nitrogen side. The phosphates are typically utilized by the macroalgae, will part, between the nitrates and the phosphates. The corals are also, when you're actually have as much coral as we do, they're also acting as a nutrient filter as well, because they're also absorbing the nitrates and the phosphates. So what we end up finding is that we're finding to keep nutrients up above zero.
So you have to work on adding excess nutrients?
Yes, so we're utilizing chemical means to bump up the nitrogen and also the phosphorus. That's corals, healthy in color. We're also doing a lot of dosing of, some of the, we do the two-part, three-part, the magnesium, alkaline, and the calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium.
Yep.
And then we're also dosing in potassium, because it's also very, very hard to find in frozen and also in the pellets. Potassium is quickly absorbed by bacteria and utilized by anything that has a membrane. So yeah, we're dosing in, potassium chloride, potassium bromide, and also potassium iodide. It's found in Lugol's. So potassium iodide is Lugol's. Potassium bromide is one of the Bromide Pro, which is what we utilize a lot of. And then potassium chloride is also found in the salts, in a lot of the high-end salts.
Yeah.
So constantly replenishing potassium that way.
Sorry to interrupt, Dev.
Yep.
Do you know on your chat thing? Do you know where it says text channels and voice channels?
Yep.
Can you see the little plus button next to where it says text channels and voice channels?
Yeah. Well, it says create channel if I hover over it, or create instant invite.
It says create. No. If you see text channels, there should be a plus button.
Yep.
Next to it, and it says create channel. Press on that.
Yep.
And it'll say channel name.
Yep.
Oh no, hold on.
That's to create a new channel, though.
That's to create a new channel. No, sorry. I'm just trying to work out how to add people.
So,
oh, here we go.
Yeah.
If you go to the top left, there's a blue button where it says friends. And then you can say, then there's another blue button that says add friend. You should be able to add Terrans through that. So it'll say add friend. You can add a friend with their Discord tag. Actually,
I'm not even finding that, to be honest.
It's in the top left corner of your Discord. If you're
the blue people.
The blue people, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, friends. Hey, friends. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So his tag is #8696.
Okay.
Add that. You should be able to get him in.
I'm still searching for that. Yeah, as you guys know, I'm completely new to this whole Discord thing. Add friend. There it is. 8696. Pound 8696? Hashtag 8696? Hashtag is pound.
Yeah.
Oh, hashtag is pound. I don't know.
Alright.
Do things differently.
Yeah, it's the number sign.
I think you might need his Discord name as well, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I typed it in. It didn't do anything. Enter a Discord tag, #8696. Yeah, I hit it. It said nothing. Didn't work. Check the calibration,
Terrence?
spelling, and spaces. Terrence, the other number right?
Put your hashtag name. Sorry, your Discord name in the chat, and I'll work it out while ReefDudes carries.
That's cool.
Yeah, it just said didn't work.
Problem getting it. Yeah.
You just crack on, Dev. I'll sort it out for you.
All these new technologies. Okay, it's not a reef tank. I'm lost. You know I'm techie.
Yeah.
All right, Cruz. So you're saying you actually have troubles because you have to add that much stuff into your systems. You haven't done a water change in years, and you're actually having trouble keeping those nutrients up inside of it.
Correct.
Huh.
Correct. Because I mean, the corals, the algae, and also the bacteria utilize the nitrates and phosphates.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Miracle Mud also utilizes and denitrifies, denitrifies the nitrates and turns them into gas.
Yep.
So, yeah. And then the only time that we actually do a water change, typically, is if there's something really off. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a balance that's off. Or if, and then the only time that we actually run carbon is for a very, very short period, like 2 days, just to clear up, so that we're not getting that yellow tinge, the excess organic.
Yep.
But other than that, we don't carbon for longer than 2 days, typically. We utilize mechanical filtration, filter floss.
Yeah. And
so the filter floss is only there when we're actually doing clean of the tank. Okay. We have a sand bed, probably about, let's say, 3 inches.
Yep.
And, we're, constantly stirring it while we're bubbling. And the bubbling actually lifts up all that excess organic out of the sand, so it doesn't decompose. You're trying to remove a lot of the problems before it even starts. So a lot of the excess gases, methane, some of the hydrogen sulfide buildups and stuff in the anaerobic areas, in the sand bed, you try to get rid of it as possible.
So, Cruz, I got a question for you in the chat. They said, if you haven't done a water change in 15 years and you're using Miracle Mud, how often are you changing it out?
How often do we change it?
Yeah, if you haven't done a water change in 15 years, he's asked, I believe that was the question. How often are you changing out the Miracle Mud?
Oh, yeah.
How often and how much you're switching out, Cruz? I think
that we're only switching out maybe about 30% every year.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the guidelines is like 30. Is it like 30 to 50% per year, depending on obviously the uptake,
the utilization?
Right?
Yes. Correct. And we do have a large enough system that new gym systems to actually, how do you say, supply a good stream of minerals, soluble and insoluble, the mineralization back in the system.
Yep.
Change it out, probably about a year.
Okay. No, that's good to know. Hopefully I answered your question out there. Now, another one I saw scroll by not too long ago was about using ozone. So ozone is something that I use in my tank as well. I run it for 3 or 4 hours a night at a very low amount, and I use that mainly to partially to get, if any coral warfare going on, it'll help break down those toxins. If there's any yellowing pigments in the water, it'll break down those as well. So there's a few different benefits. The skimmer has virtually no smell anymore, which is another nice benefit for me. And it keeps your water super crystal clear. Again, like everything else that I've said, ozone, less is more with ozone, right? You want to use just enough to get the job done. You don't want to overdo it, or it can cause trouble, like anything else for overdosing in a tank.
Amen.
Yeah. So that's another tool that I use in my tank for a couple hours a night, and yeah, I find a ton of benefits in it. But yeah, definitely less is more, like just enough to do the job, for sure.
Dev, when you went onto the ozone, because I know we talked about this at the time, now that you've been running it for a while, you've got experience in it now, how do you find using the ozone compares to, for example, using carbon and other methods that you use to achieve a similar, water clarity, etc.?
So right now, I still have carbon. I probably only change it every 2 months or so, so it's probably very limited actual use it gets. So I do change it once in a while, just, I don't know, because I have some for fun. But the ozone does a huge job in keeping the water clear. I mean, you can do the same thing with carbon, but again, that's something you got to change more frequently, and you got to buy more of it. Where the ozone, you have it, you buy it once, and it does its job. Eventually, I'm sure that little discharge plate's going to wear out and I have to replace it. But to me, it's very, very low maintenance. It's something, providing your skimmer is ozone capable, I mean, you just hook up to one of the inlets. It's very easy to do. So I am a fan of it. But again, I'm only using very low amounts, so it's definitely something, less. I just want to keep repeating less is more, because I've seen some people, if they crank it too high, you're going to cause trouble. So, but yeah, I am happy with mine. It's worked out really well for me. Are you still utilizing on your tank there at all, Nick?
Not on this one yet, because it doesn't really require it at the stage it's at, but when I start filling it out some more with some coral, then yeah, for sure, I will be.
Yeah. So crews are using ozone in your systems? So actually, Daily Reefing is asking, he was scared to use ozone on his fancy $2,000 skimmer. Understandable. So honestly, contact the manufacturer and see if it's ozone capable. If you use too much ozone, it can actually negate the effect of skimming, like it will impact in a negative way. But if you use just a little bit, it'll actually enhance the skimming. So it's kind of got to find that line. You don't want to use too much, but a little bit will improve your skimming. Now, there's different types of acrylic. I don't know if it's just between, like, if it's the cast acrylic or if it's extruded. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I know some are ozone capable and some are not. So that's the other kind of thing to keep in mind. Just contact your manufacturer and ask them. Like with mine, I use a Coral Box Cloud 9. And I just emailed them and said, is this, ozone safe? They're like, yep, everything's ozone safe. So I wasn't really too worried about adding it on. But if it's not ozone safe acrylic, then it will break it down over time, and it will still turn the plastic yellow eventually and could crack. So that's kind of a long-term downfall if it's not an ozone safe or compatible materials they use to build a skimmer.
Yeah, Daily Reefing's Bubble King. I'm a Bubble King dealer, and I know that those skimmers are ozone friendly. What you tend to find is that on the higher end skimmers, they are ozone friendly. Ozone is considered to be, I'd say, more an advanced technique than a beginner's technique. So you usually find the better quality, more expensive skimmers are definitely ozone friendly.
Yep. Now there's another question that came by of how many milligrams I use. I use probably about 20 to 25 milligrams of ozone in my tank, and I run that for about 4 hours a night. So that comes on just after midnight. It just sucks into my skimmer at nighttime. So yeah, definitely to start very low. You do not need a lot to see the benefits of it.
Did it surprise you, Dev, how little you actually needed?
Yeah, no, not much at all. Like I think my little unit does 50 milligrams and it's less than halfway up. So I'm going to say like 40-50%. So 20-25. But yeah, looking straight through, you don't notice much, but like behind me, like if you look at the long end of the tank, like the camera doesn't do it justice. Like your pumps, everything, 6 feet through 6 feet of water is like crystal clear. So that's the biggest benefit for me, right? It just makes your tank look, the water is almost not even there. So that's why my next battle is to get rid of having to clean the glass as much, and it'll be golden. Oh, NATO UPS showed up, and they're bringing your H380. That is one intense Fugilite. That should be good. Okay, so Robert's saying he's using a Bubble Magnus Curve 5 with ozone. Excellent. Is it going well for you, Robert? Now, one thing on this, I do have ozone. I tried using those little beads. They're basically like a color-changing silica gel as like a cheap ozone dryer. They work, but they're a bit of a pain, at least for me, because they seem to get used up fairly quickly. And you just throw them in the oven or whatever you want, dry them out, and you could reuse them. So, I mean, it's a cheap rechargeable way versus spending a fortune on an air dryer. So, having an air dryer basically just helps that corona discharge plate last longer. You don't have to have it, but it makes your system a little more effective. So, I just use those little beads. I mean, I only recharge them every couple weeks. They probably should be recharged much quicker, but well. Just in the chat, you're saying H380 rocks, worth the cash if you got to grow it fast. Yeah, so BRS did a great video on that where they can compare different lights. The H380, it's like a 90-something watt grow light by Kessil, which is specifically made for like horticulture and growing. And that thing, and all their videos, like there was like a massive boost in pH at night, so it made a big difference. At first it grew Heraldgy because it was so intense. Once the Heraldgy finally got over it, the Chaeto did seem to outcompete it. I haven't used that one personally. I've been debating adding one to my system. In the past, I used a 90 watt Evergrow light, which I think is probably not too far off of that. That thing grew Chaeto like crazy. So, on the note,
Dev,
yes.
Sorry, I've worked it out. Basically, what you need to physically type Terence's name.
Yep.
So capital T. So if you go to the blue section again,
okay.
Physically type his name. Don't copy and paste it, and then put in his hash or his pound.
Okay. What was the number? 5868, maybe.
He's somewhere. Let me just find out.
Capital T. I bet you that's the whole reason it didn't work.
I think what it was the copy and paste inside of things. That wasn't work. So it's 8696.
8696. Okay.
Try that, because I've just added him and I've added trim time and it worked.
TERENCE.
Yeah, but I can't add them to your server because it's your server.
Count 8696. No, not working.
No?
No. Is he in any of your chats? Can I add him that way?
I don't know. I've just added them both as a friend, but we're not in.
Add him to your gaming channel, and then I'll pull him out of there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So yeah. So it's definitely.
Just got a quick question for Robert. He's using it on the
20
Bubble
milligrams.
Megas.
Yep.
How long have you been running the ozone with your Bubble Megas, Robert? Because I know on those particular skimmers, the silicon tube and the silencer, we used to have issues with those not being so ozone friendly. They used to crack over time, so you might want to watch that. The Curve 5, I don't know if they updated the silencer, but it might be something to just keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. No, good to know. But yeah, if you're gonna do it, definitely make sure that it's ozone friendly, or it's a skimmer you don't care about. I mean, if you buy a used one for cheap, you're strictly using a reactor. I mean, that's fair enough too. So 3 months in.
Yeah, so I'd say just keep an eye on the silencer, and what you'll see is the air intake tube that runs from the silencer into the main body of the skimmer. Over time, you might see that starting to go very white, like a solid white, and every now and again just squeeze it in the white areas, and you'll notice if it'll get really stiff, and then when you're squeezing it may crack.
Yeah.
So I'd suggest getting a spare inlet tube, air intake tube, and then if you get to that stage, you've got one ready to go to swap it out.
Now, on that same note from previously, just kind of like a vast, like the airline tube I used from the ozone to my skimmer, it was blue, now it's clear. So ozone will break down stuff. I mean, that's basically what it does. You know, anything, if it's not ozone safe, it will break it down. And how it works is kind of a general thing. So oxygen's O2, ozone is O3. So it basically uses like static electricity to break up those oxygen molecules. Yeah, so once they break up, it goes from 2 oxygen molecules to some random ones floating around. And that third one will attach to the other oxygen molecules, which makes O3. Now, that's very unstable, so it wants to break itself off, and it's going to oxidize whatever it attaches to. That's why you want to do it in your skimmer, where you're already collecting all those proteins, and that gunk is going to help break it down a lot quicker. That's kind of the gist of how it works. So now if something's not ozone safe, same thing, right? It's going to try and oxidize it and break that material down, whatever it is. So you want to make sure it's ozone resistant so that it doesn't, take away its longevity and make it brittle and crack and those type of things will happen if you're not using an ozone safe skimmer. And I've also seen people use just like a PVC and build like a very simple ozone reactor. So I mean, that's another option too if you're ever going to use it. Just quickly catching up on the chat. Carson's looking for a skimmer, and he's local to me, so I will definitely keep an eye out for you.
You guys can actually hear me now?
We can.
Hey, Terrence, how
Welcome.
you doing?
All right, I'll keep all the rude comments down for now. Okay.
Behave.
I was typing them because you're a different person when you're typing than when you're on voice, so you got to become kind of a different entity. So I'll kind of keep it mellow now, but it's a little aggravating. This technology for the gamers, I guess.
I only.
It's my fault, I'll admit.
Yeah, it might be. Blame Michael. Hangouts had a lot of issues lately. I found a lot of people on here. They could kick them out, or people had issues joining, and Google's messing with the link. So I just want to try something else. So I tried it last week. Seemed to work pretty well. Most people made it in pretty quick and easy, assuming they had the app already.
I think the duplex works better on this.
Haven't tried that one yet.
No, I mean it's full duplex. So
okay.
You're not talking over each person. But how do you know who's talking when?
You can see a little green circle pop up when somebody's talking, so it shows who's talking. You can also.
But the people who are not on this can't see. So the people who are just on text chat can't know if somebody's giving advice who the person is that's giving the advice, right?
Pretty much.
You can actually set up a video chat just like you can on Hangouts.
Maybe it'll be advanced for next week.
That'll be next week.
Well, I don't want to sidetrack this whole thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought before it was nice because you could know who was actually saying what was what, even if it wasn't a live video. It was at least their icon.
Yeah. That's next.
But this way, Terrence, we get to belittle you without you knowing who it is.
I guess I'll
Not
just
that I'm
have
saying we're going to do that, but hey.
I guess I just have to figure out all those cheeky accents.
I know the best way. You just call your name out before you start talking. So just say, Terence from Neptune. Here's my comment, and then Nick from Aquarium Cabinet Solutions, etc. Until he gets
I don't
the
think
sign
so.
out.
Yeah. Everyone just behave and play nice.
Infamous aquatic things, that's a horrible idea.
Hey, so Dev, next week are we having the nano bubble debate?
If you guys want, are up for it. Terrence, are you?
Is that actually going to happen?
If you guys
we'll not go into
want
it
to.
Somebody
now.
had to
We might
remind
as
me to
well
talk
get
to
distracted.
Rich about that.
All right.
I got to get Rich dialed in on that. nobody reminded me, so.
Do you want to? Do you want to do it next week?
Other things, so I'll have to see.
We have both Cruz and Nick on that are highly strong advocates of the benefits of it. So it would be interesting. I'd like to hear scientific
Not advocates,
debate.
we're nano bubble warriors.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do
crack
something,
me up,
do it
man.
strong.
Exactly. So, all right, potential for next week.
Okay.
Man, I miss that guy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So there's a lot of anecdotal benefits to it that you guys may say is truth, but my original biggest benefit was upping my pH at night, and there is other benefits. So we'll leave that as a teaser for potentially next week.
No problem.
Correct. If it's observable and repeatable,
Next week, Chris. Next week. Calm down.
You can't let them know all your arguments right now, Cruz.
Yeah.
Don't give them any ammunition.
thanks, sir.
Yeah, that'll be like all this counter research we'll be pulling up for next
Let
week.
me write that down.
Just make sure you bring some cover with you, Terrence.
I'm going to bring some cowbell also.
Oh, no cowbells allowed on this stream. Great. So Terrence, how about you? What is your view on
I don't
water
know.
changes?
I look out over the horizon and it looks flat every day.
Mm-hmm.
So the world must be flat, right?
Oh, it's already starting,
I
guys.
know. Here comes the cheekiness. Okay, water change wise, is your water change flat or turbid? What is your opinion on water changes, nutrient import / export?
I've never been a big water changer.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been the every week. I'm not the kind of personality of a person that can do anything on a real schedule very well. So the whole idea of 10% water change every week, I would have been out of the hobby a long time ago. It just wouldn't suit me if it was absolutely necessary. So probably starting like 10 years ago when I started back into the hobby, I probably changed maybe 10% of the water every 4 to 6 weeks. And the tank did really well. I mean, the only time I had any real issues at all is when, my RODI filter was on the fritz and my TDS meter wasn't telling me that it was, and stuff just kept rolling downhill and I had no idea. Yeah, and so that's the only time I really had a real bad algae crash or anything around that. But then since I started this new system here in California, the 450-gallon one, I was running early on with running filter socks and doing probably about, I guess it'd be probably about a 17% water change every 3 to 4 weeks, probably. And everything was going fine. And I was doing it mostly because I didn't want to dose any other kinds of trace elements or whatever, and I knew that I'd be depleting them. As things started growing a little bit more, was about the time when I'm like, okay, well, I'll start messing around with this Triton system stuff and be able to see what's actually in the tank and dose, their little magical mix, whatever's in it. And we'll see how things go. And I'll stop doing the water changes and I'll take the filter sock off. And I don't run ozone. I do run UV half a day. I was quite surprised how well the tank actually was doing. I mean, just a weekend using Triton stuff, I have no stake in that. I just was missing stuff evidently that it needed to have, and then I just kept going. And I haven't done a major water change now in probably, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at my thread, but maybe it's 7 months now.
Okay.
That I haven't done a water change,
nice.
and there's not a speck of algae in my tank, except for the little piece of bryopsis that I got from what's his name, the coral guy that's the most Jason Fox coral. Except for that little piece of bryopsis that I got that'll never go away, that I keep hitting with hydrogen peroxide every 3 to 4 weeks.
And that doesn't kill it.
It kills it, but it doesn't kill it to the root.
I gotcha.
I mean, I use a pipette and hydrogen peroxide, and it dies back, and I hope it doesn't go somewhere else, and then it just comes back, and I do it again, and it kind of stays right in that spot next to the Carolinia frag that I got from Jason Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Is it actually on the frag, or is it on the plug itself?
It was originally on the plug. I'm almost positive. The reason I know that is because that was one of the first frags that I put in the tank before anything else went in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Anything from anybody's system or anything, I'd gotten about, I don't know, 8 or 10 nice corals in from Jason Fox, and love his stuff. And figured it'd be the cleanest stuff I could possibly get. Then I read an article in, I don't know, Reef Hobbyist or Coral Magazine or something. Somebody had interviewed him. And he's like, yeah, even I had to fight bryopsis, about, and I'm like, mother.
You're like,
Yeah, because even if you scrape a little bit of that off the plug or whatever, there's something on there. You know what I mean? And it's like, now it's in my tank. And, what are you going to do?
The gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like an encrusted, nice Carolinia frag. So it's not like I'm going to, completely cut it off, because it wasn't like a 2-inch frag or something. So, yeah, it was, well, that's just the way it goes.
Yep. Yeah.
But anyway, water change wise, I'm pretty convinced right now. I'll need to. I have easy access to my sump, so I don't really care about how much detritus is in the sump, because I will be able to do a water change when I feel up to it in the next month or two, and just suck out a bunch of the detritus in the sump and be good to go.
Yep. I mean, cleaning my sump or cleaning my sand bed. Those are the 2 times I really actually do a water change, and it's a 5-gallon bucket, so I mean it's minimal, but those are my big excuses. I mean,
I don't even clean the sand.
No.
I don't touch my sand in my tank. Yeah. I've got animals that do that for me.
Yeah, that's fair. So I do too. It's probably pointless, but.
I mean, I've got a diamond goby that's a maniac, and he's huge, and then I've got like 12 of those fighting conchs, and just a bunch of other things that just tend to move the sand around in the tank, and so.
Fighting conches, I think, are very underrated for cleanup crew. Those guys are awesome. They're like
they are
ongoing.
They absolutely are. They never stop.
I have 1 in my nano and 2 in my big tank, and those guys are awesome.
Yeah, and then I just put like 24 like gigantic Necarius in there too, because I love those little guys, those little nuclear submarines.
Yeah, the little snorkel up, cruising through the sand bed. Those guys are great. That and a sand sifting star is one other one I have, just to mix it up and a bit of cleaning.
So, Deb, do you think there's a correlation between you requiring water changes because of, like we were just saying about conches and diamond gobies and things like that? So do you think that if you considered, how you maintain your system may negate water changes? Well,
okay, so water changes, you're either trying to supplement something or take something out. Right? So if you're supplementing through dosing trace elements, you're adding the stuff in. The only other question is your excess nutrients. If you have too much nitrogen or phosphates in your tank, or there's some other type of thing that's feeding algae potentially, or something that's building up. I mean, you don't know until you test, right? But if things are staying, your tank's happy, things are maintaining their current level, you're doing something right. But if stuff keeps climbing, I mean, eventually it's going to turn into an issue. So I think that's kind of the thing you need to take a look at and see if, are you feeding too much? Are you adding too much of X? Or using tap water? Maybe that's adding phosphates and other stuff to your water. So it really depends on if you're pushing it too far with something, and whether or not you need to export that through either A, water changes, or B, chemical or natural ways such as algae.
I have a firm, my firm opinion is that the the really successful people that are doing regular water changes are really successful, not because it's exporting, but mostly because they're getting all the different trace elements and they're not dosing them in some other way. And if you choose to dose them in some other way using a system, I don't care whose it is, but if it's a balanced system that people have proven to have some success with, then you're going to be, in pretty good shape. If you just kind of willy-nilly start dumping different things in, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's out of balance. And that's why I think some of those, whether it's, I can't vouch for Aquaforest because I haven't run it, but it's a similar kind of system. And of course, Triton and whatnot. I think it's a great approach to reef keeping.
No, exactly. No, I'm with you. And as long as you're in balance, there's no real benefit or point to doing excess water changes. It's just, costing you money and salt.
Now, one of the things that is nonsense, in my opinion, on the Triton stuff is the flow rate through the sump. I think that's a complete, absolute nonsense because it's nearly impossible to get to the rates that they're talking about anyway and have a reasonably run sump. And I think the numbers originally were created because they didn't understand what real flow was. So, really what the real numbers are. It didn't come from somebody doing a bucket test on a 1,000-gallon system and saying, guess what, I've got a 10,000 gallons of flow through my sump. No way. There's no way. It's impossible. And if you had a
clarification on that, Peter.
What do you mean?
Well, in the UK, we've had Triton for about 7 or 8 years, and one of my good friends is the UK Triton distributor. And when that left Germany, he was probably like the first person to distribute it outside of Germany with it. So a lot of conversations have taken place, and I agree with you. I do aquarium systems, and so when Triton first was available, we were setting Triton systems up for people. And exactly what you were saying, sometimes it seemed impossible to get that 10 times turnover rate from display to sump that they were specifying. So I called my friend up and said, hey, look, if I put 10 times turnover rate through this system, it's going to be noisy as hell, right? And the answer was that, look, it says up to 10 times turnover. And the reason for that is because it's a dosing method. What they were concerned about was
I understand
would dump and that it wouldn't get
precipitate. Yeah. I understand. I understand the reasoning.
As long as it's above 5, then you're pretty good. Vince himself, who's the UK Triton distributor, that time I don't know what he's doing now, but at that time he was running between 7 and 7.5 times.
Right.
So as soon as I said that to my client, because he was like, "Oh, it's got to be 10 times." Triton says it's 10 times, and a lot of that stuff is a guide.
I get it, but the customers are stating it. Okay, customers don't know what guides are.
Yeah, that's
customers know what they read on 5 forums and a piece of paper that they got.
No, I agree. And, I think
I get it all day long of somebody with a Red Sea Reefer 525. Okay, it has 1/5/8 tube on it. Going, I can't. This flow meter must be wrong because it doesn't go over 520. And I've got, an L1 on here that's supposed to do 3,800 gallons per hour. So clearly there's a problem here.
At 0 head height and restricted output on the pump.
Well, yeah, exactly. And what nobody understands the other thing. And it's just not, and that doesn't mean that they're not going to be successful, even with the Triton method at 580 gallons per hour on that Red Sea Reefer 525. That's what I'm getting at.
I agree. I think with Triton as well, a lot of the early information that they put out, some of the figures, like people initially were saying to us, it needs to be this, it needs to be this, it needs to be this, very specific figures, because that's what Triton were quoting. When you actually speak to Eshan and the Triton guys, it's more like, well, look, we've got to give some kind of indication. But I think the mistake they did make was that they didn't explain or describe it that way. So people took things very specific and very literally, which was a little bit misleading. So I do agree with you, Terence, that they should have, been a little.
I'm not trying to take away from the system. All I'm trying to say is that it's really screwing with a lot of people's minds that either want to do it or they're running sumps and all this other, or they're running. And I see it more than probably most people see it, and that's because our products show people what their actual flow rates are. And I try to get somebody with a single half-inch output at the top of their tank wants to get 2,000 gallons per hour out of it. I'm like, what do you want to do? Hit the building next to you? I mean, it's.
But then that's why,
we had
you've got
failure
one of
on
the
one of
RFGs,
them
right?
with the-
So that's why that product is so great, because with that you don't get that jet reaction from the outlet now. So products like that coming onto the market help a little bit with increasing those flow rates without that, massive laser jet of water coming into your tank.
The other thing is too that most people restrict the flow in their pipe. Like most of these pumps, like I believe Neptunes are, same with like Ecotechs, like they're designed ideally maximum flow rate. I believe it's like 1.25 inch output. I believe it is. Or
Yes.
I mean, I'd say 1/2 inch, 3/4 are 90% of people out there, right? Unless you have a giant tank, most people run a smaller output.
All the Red Seas are 5/8.
Okay.
So that immediately is problematic, and most people, even believe it or not, many fish stores, at least here in the United States, are plumbing everything with like 3/4 inch pipe. It's kind of how they were taught, and back in the day, a lot of these guys were running pressure rated pumps too, right? I mean, that created, used a lot of power, created a lot of heat, but also could push a lot of water through a very narrow tube. Whereas your DC pumps today can't do that.
Yeah.
And they're not designed to do that. And it's just people not understanding how bad the line loss is. I probably write at least 2 really involved posts a week, trying to explain it to people in ways that help them understand, or giving them, saying, okay, if we're going to have a race. We're each going to get a 32-ounce soda. I'm going to get this big boba straw, and you're going to get a coffee stir. Okay, which one of us is going to win? And you start to think about it that way. People are like, oh yeah, okay. Well, it didn't take me any more force to do it, but it's taking you forever to do it, and taking you a lot more energy to be able to pull the same amount of fluid through in the same amount of time through that tiny little straw.
No.
Dev, just a quick one actually, because we sort of explained the issue with that with the Triton. The solution for it is, if you can't get to the flow rates that they're specifying because of the system you've got, like a Red Sea Reefer, for example, a way to overcome that problem, the reason why they want you to get those flow rates, what you can do is you can dilute the solutions and dose more frequently at lesser amounts. So overall you're dosing the same amounts, but that way it's diluted, so the issue of dumping solutions in all at once and it dissipating is gone.
Okay,
it's really also just dosing it. If you dose it in where it's dumping in from your drain, also that where you have a high flow rate right there, right in an immediate area, that also helps keep it from precipitating out.
So is that the only reason they advise such a high flow rate, is so their stuff dilutes in the water quicker?
There's two reasons that when I looked at it and talked to them, really. One is because of the concentration of solutions. Like, several people have complained, well, not complained, but have said that they're chasing alcohol all the time, or calcium all the time, and what it is, it's basically the water can't hold it in the amount they're putting it in, so you need to spread out that dosing for the water to actually take it up. The other reason is to do with if you're using the Triton method like core selling, because you've got other methods and Triton method. So if you're using the Triton method and you run it with refugium, it has some play with the algae as well. If you even before Triton, if you look back and do a bit of research on refugium based systems, they were sort of saying that nominal turnover was 10 times turnover.
Yeah. So just on a bit of a
just Triton
side,
brought that in.
Yeah, on a bit of a sidetrack note, I mean, ideally, like, I would always recommend people use a doser, not dose by hand. And if you're dosing, 30, 40 mils to your tank, dose a couple mils per hour, not just dump it all at once. Like on my alkalinity, I only dose it at night, but it doses literally every 10 minutes. I think it doses like 0.9 of a mil. So it's always best to break that up, and then you're feeding it constantly, and you're going to keep your levels way more stable than just manually dumping a bunch in at some point.
You gotta be a little careful though with the Triton stuff. If you dose too little, it's also not good, because it actually will precipitate at the output, and you actually basically start to build up stalactites on the output easier.
So here's another question for you guys. So for the whole reasoning of turnover in your system, like, I think, yes, it's better to have higher flow within the tank, but not necessarily through the sump. I mean, to a certain extent.
Right, of course.
Yeah, because, I mean, on one aspect...
Why do you need high flow within the tank, Dev?
Well, I think it's better to have case, so maybe not high flow, good flow. What's not broad flow. What's the word I'm looking for? Water movement. It's good to have lots of water movement through in the tank. But through the filtration, I mean, on the flip side, if you have a slower turnover, it's more contact time with your skimmer and your Chaeto and other stuff in there. So I mean, there's different ways to look at it, but I mean, add a power head or two to your tank and worry about flow in there, not necessarily through the whole system running around. I don't think
that
you
could
need
be
crazy
a
flow
whole
through.
nother Wednesday night chat.
It probably is.
Yeah, as far as going through your filtration, in my opinion, other than noise and other than the cost and the fact that people's plumbing can't do it, if I could run it, especially if I was doing mechanical filtration and other stuff, if I could run it through 3 times faster than I am, I'd say, yeah, go for it.
I agree.
But it's not really it's not necessary in order to filter it correctly for the most part. And back in the day, people didn't have the great power heads that we have now, and so they closed loop stuff, and then closed loop wasn't enough, so it was nice to get a lot more flow through your sump too, because that ended up creating flow in your aquarium, or water movement in your aquarium.
Yep.
The other thing you got to remember as well, Dev, a lot of the guidelines and things that are established as almost golden rules of reefing, some of those golden rules were established 25 years ago. I've been a reefer for over 30 years, so I've seen the establishment of some of those rules. And the modern day reefing, some of those rules are outdated now. Some of those golden guidelines are just simply outdated because, like Terrence says, we've got control methods and different things come into play where we're able to do things that we couldn't do before. My thing with flow is completely changed this last few years. So I'm an old school reefer that is always wanting to develop and evolve in my reef keeping. And
so what's your current outlook? Do you agree that you do not need psychotic amounts of flow for system turnover now?
You talking about in tank, or are you talking about?
I'm talking about through the filtration, because I was just saying, because he's talking about the old school versus the new school outlook.
It's like you got to think like in the old days, we advocated lots of live rock. We had formulas like 1 kilo for every 10 liters, live rock. And the idea was that we'd have enough bacteria in the live rock to deal with the stocking level that we'd expect it to be for every 10 liters. But then to counteract the entrapment of fish waste and uneaten food that would then go into that rock, we used to talk about pointing your power heads at the rock to blast it through. So that's one of the reasons we used to talk about lots of chaotic high flow to eradicate dead spots, which for me was caused by entrapment and leaching thereafter. So now that we've got really high efficient bacterial media that you can put in the clean area of your sump after mechanical filtration and skimming, the need for masses of live rock is reduced, therefore less entrapment. Therefore, why do you need to be blasting all of that flow around your tank?
Well, on the flip side, do you think you're pushing?
Was for that.
Do you think you're pushing stuff into your rock, not necessarily cleaning it if you're blasting it directly at your rock?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that the higher flow you get pointing at your rock, where you think you're blowing it through, you're actually pushing more stuff in. So, I mean, you've seen the scapes that I do now. I try and have as least amount of rock in there as possible, to the point of getting a big boulder.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The center out of it.
I agree 100% on that.
So some of the golden rules of reefing that have been carried through the generations, do they still apply?
A lot.
I'm starting to question quite a lot of them.
Well, a lot of them don't, because they didn't have the same kind of output of flow in. The skimmers weren't quite they weren't as efficient. Like a lot of the stuff was based on more of a basic.
Most of them didn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
At all.
Yeah.
You don't have the same efficiencies you do these days in a lot of the equipment, which goes a long way. Nope.
No, exactly. So for me, we've changed the way that we create flow within our systems now. Personally, in the installations and systems that I set up, we go for a nice surge flow that's gentle and swaying, and we see huge polyp extensions because they're not fighting that flow.
Yep.
The soft, gentle flow carries food to the coral in a way that they can capture it more easily. So because they can extend the polyps greater and the food isn't whizzing past, they're able to get more of it, right?
I think that's a big thing
and
too.
Also
the old...
capture more light as well.
Yeah.
Because there's more light receptors out there receiving the light from the system.
Well, so a big thing too, a lot of the old pumps were literally like your jet stream of water, where all the new pumps, a lot of them are very broad relative to what they used to be, right? So
exactly, and that's another great thing. I mean, if you compare the old Tunzi almost cannons to something like the MaxSpec Jaya is almost perfectly designed to generate that momentum at the top sort of third quarter of your tank that entrains the bottom 2/3 of your water to pick up that momentum, so that you're not actually directly using the power heads to push the water at the rock. You're using the momentum of the water to generate that for you.
It's crazy how much stuff has changed over time.
Yeah, and the water.
So that's why I asked you, why do we need high flow?
Yep.
I mean, the topic of the talk here with the water change, back to that, it's absolutely, I agree 100% that even that is a thing that is in a kind of a flux right now in terms of how people look at water changes, and I think it's probably having some interesting impact that is being seen right now by the people at the salt companies. I bet you can probably track that pretty well in the data.
Yeah.
To see how that's impacting, the likes of Instant Ocean and Fritz and all of these other brands as far as how much salt's being actually pulled through. Because I mean that could be a huge difference. If you've got 20% of the people all of a sudden going, you know what, I'm going to do it less often. Oh shoot.
Exactly. and all the trace element companies like, whoop whoop, we're going up.
Right. And what's so funny is that if I was in just talking from a business standpoint, if I was in one of those other companies, I'd be doing a hell of a lot more work right now on pushing out there how you really still need to do tons of water changes, and I don't see that happening.
Yep. No, exactly. I mean, hey, if your nutrient output is handled by macroalgae or not mechanical, well, it could be mechanical actually, or chemical, anything else. I mean, the only other big reason was for adding trace elements. Now there's so many products they have now to add those back in. So it is really, really, really reducing the potential need for it. So you guys don't need to vacuum your sand beds at all, eh? That's like the only time my tank gets the water changed these days. The Nano gets a little bit more. I'm still doing it on those. It's a newer tank, so fair enough. But on my large reef, it's literally cleaning out my sump just because I want it to look shiny again, or clean up.
I used to do it all the time on my old 210, because it was kind of what you did, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason in this tank, I think with the animals that I have, the flow rate that I have, all of that, it just doesn't seem to be a problem.
You found that happy balance, eh?
Yeah, I mean, knock on wood, I don't have any, real nuisance algae. I don't have any cyano problems, anything like that.
Nope, that's awesome. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, is finding the balance in your tank. So.
But I also keep my hands out of the tank a lot, a lot more than I used to. My hands don't go in the tank for much at all, like they, like they did before. I think there's a bunch of, evidence there too.
No, that's a good point. When I first started, I mean, the first year or two, my hands were in that tank pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
Yep. DC, I'm bubbling also. DC, next week's live stream very well might be on bubbling.
DC's a UK prodigy. That's what he is.
He wants to be, eh? From DC all the way to the UK.
We're imparting our UK methods on him.
Awesome.
Hey, you know what I like best about this particular day's talk?
Is
there hasn't been a single Apex question in about 45 minutes.
I had one, but I reserved myself, Terrence.
I appreciate that.
Sometimes you want a day off as well, right?
Yep, got to take it easy today.
One of you Brits are going to say, how come we get stuck with the old stuff?
No, I'm one of those that
totally gets
it. I think they've accepted
it. I totally understand.
You guys care about us. We reef too.
I think it sucks, but I accept it.
Hey, look, you guys are used to old-looking taxi cabs, so there you go.
What's an old-looking power bar? It's all good. The comment, so Apex, so Trident.
Terrence, I wish I could actually. I can't even. I'm not even allowed to sell your stuff though, Terrence. That's the worst thing.
I know.
I can't even supply it. I have to supply your competitors because they love me, but
Yeah.
supply yours. It's so disappointing.
And I'm sure you're breaking records too with that product.
I was the top seller for Apex for the first 4 months in the UK. I'll have you know.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm
Yeah.
saying I bet with the competing product, you can't keep it in stock.
Yep.
No, it's it's one of those. I to be fair, I have a lot of respect for Neptune and Apex. It is a fantastic piece of kit, and I think people that don't run it and don't get it, in my experience, when they get it, then they understand it and they love it.
I think I might have said before. The funny thing is go out to our website and there's a section called Apex Love.
Yeah,
and go read those comments, and it's pretty funny. It's hilarious to read. I mean, not just like, I'm not trying to pitch it that way. I'm just saying it's funny to see people's raw comments and the thing they say. It's just like, man, what an idiot I was for like 4 years. What the hell was I doing? I mean, things like that. They're just so funny.
That was great. I'm actually
I'm always excited as well when you guys develop more ancillary products, and I think it's really good that, and I'm not trying to blow smoke, I actually do really like the fact that you're evolving as a company and that you haven't just stuck to the one thing, and I think that's really good as well.
We're trying to build a little ecosystem, and I mean, the key thing for what we do too, not trying to plug it, but I think it's really important for people to be able to decide kind of what pieces and parts they want to have and what they want to connect to their stuff. And we try to do the best we can to give the best of both worlds, which is, okay, we're going to develop something and try to make it have a little extra level of control, but at the same time, we're going to try to, to work closely with other vendors and make our make their stuff controllable under our umbrella. And I mean, it's ironic that there is a lot of technology out there right now that's coming into the reef keeping scene. But in the reality of it is that most of it that's being developed is not being developed in-house. And so the capabilities, even for these companies to integrate with some of our API stuff and whatnot that we are able to give out to them is so limited. I think a lot of people, they wouldn't even believe it if I got into it. It's crazy. I mean, they literally have, third-party teams that develop an app according to the way that they draw it on a board, and then they're done. And that's it.
Yeah.
And trying to go back and do it or try to add it into the spec, even on a new product, they don't do it. And a lot of times it's because the companies themselves, they don't necessarily see the vision. The person that's, working on the product, they don't understand the importance of it, which is kind of hard to understand too, because I mean, everywhere you look, I mean, you see an Apex, right? I mean,
I think a big thing too is for a lot of the companies, you can see the difference in ones that actually are hobbyists and ones that are just making a product. So actually know and use what they're doing.
But like there is products, like there's a new light that's come out, right, recently that's actually, it's Fendi's product. It's, I think Cobalt's now OEM, the light, right, from...
the Angel 200, I think it is.
Yeah, he also made a Kessel clone, the same guy, but but they have the, the API to do our IOTA control, right? But it's, no, forget it, they're just... didn't do it.
You think they would though? Just that's an extra selling feature. I mean, the more
that's what I'm saying. That's the irony, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're the low guy on the totem pole. You're trying to enter a very competitive space. You think you want to have the next competitive advantage, and you think you'd want to basically be able to walk right in and say, we've got these tens of thousands of people that all can make my light work right in their existing environment without having to run a separate app. It would seem like the most logical thing in the world.
How easy do you make it for them to do that though, Terrence? Is there like a license fee or a charge?
Nope, there's no cost. Zero cost.
A product, Neptune friendly or?
Nope, zero cost.
No,
all they have to do.
That was one of the reasons I was given that they didn't do it, was that there was.
Well, whoever told you that's full of shit. So,
no, I'm just being honest. That's the cost that one company told me.
Well, this is a friendly chat. So the the cost involved is, the cost of engineering that it takes for them to integrate it into the micro that's inside their light, right? And or their pump or whatever it may be. And the dilemma is often the people who are specifying these things, they are not hobbyists, I think, as Dev just said. They don't necessarily get it at that level. They don't necessarily get the level of penetration that we have in the high end of the market space. And when they go and look at it, they're also confused. And then they're working a lot of times with offshore companies. And you know, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, we need to have this in 3 weeks, and we want to spend 10 grand. We don't want to spend 12.5 on development for the app, and so we're just going to leave behind, you know, the IOTA integration because these guys really don't get it anyway. So that's really it's really a sad state of affairs. I mean, of many of the companies that we've engaged on this. Because we have made it super simple for them as far as the API is concerned and code samples.
Is it a
and
hardware
things.
or software issue with that then, Terrence?
Well, to do this, you have to understand that every single one of these products, they have their own little computers in them, right? Their own little micros. And those micros have their own little firmware that, you know, you push this button, you know, Bluetooth interconnect, all of these different, get it on your Wi-Fi, all of that's all built inside those lights. So the actual firmware and the operating system and everything inside that light has to have some code that's put in there so that it can go into a particular mode. That is, in the case of our IOTA, the way it works is you put it in the Apex IOTA mode, and now the Apex can find that light or that pump or what have you, and attaches to it. And, you know, basically, you know, you still attach it to your own network the way the manufacturer does, but after you've done that, you put it in this mode, and now the Apex can see it. Now the Apex is in control of it. So in order to do that, that code to do that operation has to go inside their product, and they have to implement that using our API. And there is no cost from us. There's no licensing fee or anything like that. But as I said, if they don't understand the value, whoever's in charge or what have you, and or they have a budget, or it's already been developed and this is a, you know, kind of a second thought, it's you know, it's not being done at the level it probably should be. And the hobbyists, you guys are all the ones that, you know,
pay for it.
That you lose because of it, because it could give you such really cool integration and control, and we can't obviously force them to do it. And that goes, you know, all the way down the line. You know, all of these products, you can name off anyone that has an app on it that is in probably the top 20% of, you know, brands or what have you, and I can assure you they probably already have the API.
With that then, Terrence, like from my kind of viewpoint, I mean, I don't really understand, you know, how to build a light, but is it like where you get almost like a chicken and egg scenario where for you as a company with the Neptune Apex, it makes more sense that more equipment is compatible, because then there's more reason for people to buy the Neptune?
It goes both ways though, right?
That's the reason we created the API,
that's what I'm saying,
right?
yeah.
I mean, there's an obvious reason why we create the API.
It goes both ways though, right?
But
like if I'm making a light, or if I'm buying a light, for instance, I know one will work with and one it doesn't. I'm planning on buying a controller. Yeah, I mean, the odds are you're likely going to go for the one that has more capabilities down the road for future expansion. At least that's
this is
my
what
thoughts.
I'm thinking. I mean, this is what I'm thinking. So if I was, for example, to start a lighting company and I was building a light and you heard about it, would you be able to offer me like a turnkey solution where you said, hey, if you put this chip into your light?
No, there's nothing like that. Because no, there's nothing like that, because you have to, when you build the light, you have to create your own, you know, electronics in that light. And although it's hardware, it's not just hardware, it's software, okay, that runs the light, okay? And because of that, you then have to write in the appropriate code from our API into your light to put it into that mode and to make certain things happen out on the network so it can be discoverable, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not really, well, it's, you know, for the most part, anybody who's doing these lights anyway, it should not be any big deal for them to do this. It really isn't. It doesn't, that is not usually the impediment, usually.
Right.
But, you know, again, I mean, and you can imagine, you guys know, I mean, I have connections to, I mean, the top, you know, the tops of all these companies, you know, to talk to them and say, why aren't you doing this? Why don't you do this? And they have, you know, many of them don't have a good reason, you know, that they can come up with, is why not. Some of them just don't even think it's that important.
I mean, I must admit, I was asked by OFA at Orfec to be the UK distributor for Orfec lights, and I asked him, is it Neptune compatible? You know, is it Apex? They're just launched. I've got one of their new Ocean fixtures that isn't released yet, and I said, is it Apex compatible? And he said, well, no, because I've done its own app. And I'm like, but there's a selling point for you. You know,
exactly. They don't get it. I'm telling you, I talked to OFA many times, okay? I talked to OFA on the phone many, many times. Okay, you just can't make a lot of people get this because number one, they're not hobbyists. They are not in this every day like all of us that go on these stupid little reef chats are. Okay, I mean it's in our blood. We're in the hobby. We look at the next thing that comes out every week. You know, that's just what we do. Many of these other people, it's not. They're making a light.
Terrence, you jinxed yourself. There's a Apex question. Can the Apex Junior, is it compatible with a dose?
Yes.
Yes, it is. There you go. You're good to
Multiple
go there.
dose.
No DAC.
So buy like 3 dose and connect it to the Apex Junior.
All right, you are good to go. Okay, question, Terrence. Do you use ozone in your tank?
I have in the past and been very successful with it, I think. Early on this particular tank, I did have it running in some of the beginning stages. I don't run it now. I'm also of the opinion that if I take one thing off, and it doesn't really change, what's going on in the system, I'm in a better situation. Because I have one less thing to fail. I've got one less thing that I'm having to worry about that's going to have a problem. And so if it's not really making a serious impact. Now, one could probably say if I put a white card in my tank and look at the yellowing of the water, could I get an improved, coloration in the water? Maybe. Maybe my water is, with the Starfire glass that I have and yellow water, it's the same as somebody who has non-Starfire glass with ozonated water. I don't know. It looks good to me, and I'm quite fine with it. So I'm not running it now. I do have one available, and should I see a reason to think I need it, I could just easily hook it up.
No, that's fair. I got Starfire and ozone on mine. I was just laughing at you saying that, but yeah, I'm always just curious to hear the difference. Like, did you notice a big difference when you were using it versus when you don't? And to use carbon?
I do think it does. No, it does. It does pull the yellow out of the water. There is no doubt. I mean, it's killing organic compounds that are in the water that are yellowing your water. I mean, it absolutely does. It's going to make the effective PAR in your tank on your corals going to be higher. There's no doubt about that. And obviously, the further down the corals are, the more impact that it would have. I mean, it's kind of obvious. Whether or not that matters for a lot of people, I couldn't tell you. My own personal opinion is I don't know.
Okay, well, that's fair. Okay, this chat, seriously, you guys, you're like, mortgage or tank? Corals or payments? Ozone or mortgage? You're all going to be living in your stands out on the side of the street. Coffee, coral, shelter.
Oh, man.
Yeah, corals are the drug of this hobby once you get into it. Everyone starts for the colorful fish.
I think that's
and then
it's funny. I just read through the comments and somebody's like, "He called the reef chat stupid."
Like, what?
We know you're being sarcastic. It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Lots of fun.
Hope.
What would you have more impact, ozone or UV sterilizer? I've never used a UV sterilizer.
It's completely different. It's like, that's like what has more impact on your car, the roof or the tires? I mean, it's
different things you're targeting.
Completely different.
UV, you're trying to kill little parasites and microscopic things in your water, where ozone, you're breaking down organics in your water.
You can use ozone in that way, but I've always stayed away from that because the to get that sort of redox,
you have to really blast
things like that.
Yeah.
And controllability. Yeah, you lose your controllability on that because
exactly.
It's non-discriminatory. It's non-discriminatory,
exactly.
and it's all over your tank.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's part of the reason why I don't run it at all right now. Is for that reason. I'd rather not kill things that I don't know that I might want to have for the trade-off of a more yellow water and the potential that there are some bad things, but who cares if my tank's doing well?
Yeah. So if you have too much ozone, it will actually start harming your fish and other stuff in your tank. Like, it can burn their gills and other stuff. So if you're pumping in more than is being used, say inside of your skimmer, that reaction chamber, that going into your water is bad. It's going to break down. It doesn't care if it's a good or bad. It's going to potentially harm it or break down. And it's
probably going to go in your house too.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
Probably going to build up in your basement and probably kill your family.
So on that note,
freaking A, Terrence.
So
like that.
on the safety note of saving the fish and the family and the dog, I actually have a ring of carbon on top of my skimmer vent hole. So if any does happen to escape, it would absorb it. Now,
I guess you can sleep at night.
Yeah, so I can sleep at night. Now on the flip side, a lot of people will put carbon on the output of their skimmer. I didn't bother. I'm using such a low amount. I mean, ozone has a very quick half-life, so it gets used up pretty quickly. If you're only doing a small amount, I mean, the odds are is if you have a big enough skimmer, it's going to be used up by the time any of that water makes it out of there. But it only lives for a couple seconds.
You know what? What I heard is Dev is putting vape oil on the top of his skimmer and like standing on it.
Yeah.
You find like even if you're using moderate amount of ozone, sort of like 95% of it doesn't leave the skimmer. And moderate amounts of ozone will give you water clarity and the things that you're looking to use it for anyway. And that's why I said to you, Dev, we as reefers, I always say that a lot of reefers reef with fear because they're afraid they're not feeding the fish enough. They're afraid they haven't got enough light. They're afraid they haven't got enough flow. So they're always over-egging generally, which is why a lot of people have problems because they're scared they're not doing enough. And with the ozone, that's why I said to yourself, run a moderate amount and then see how little you can use and still get the same effect. And that's like now you say, I only use a tiny bit because that's
all you need.
Realistically all you use. Exactly. But us as reefers, we go, oh, maybe it's not enough. I better put some more in, and then you get problems.
Yeah, no, exactly, right? Like, honestly, it's one of those things I said at the beginning of the stream, but less is more. You want to use just enough to accomplish what you need. I mean, that goes with dosing anything, right? You don't want to be leaching too much of anything. Too much of certain trace elements will change colors of your corals. I mean, I overdosed trace elements in the past, and all my rainbow Monty turned red. And someone else I was talking to earlier in the chat, they said one of the ones they overdosed, it turned all their corals green. So I mean, too much of anything is bad, right? So you don't want zero, and you don't want too much. You got to find just enough.
The biggest new problem with people running ozone is they go out to eBay, they buy a spa ozonator, okay, with a big old pump on it, and they just start forcing that into their tank, and they don't run like ORP shutoff on the ozonator, and they have no idea how much is going in there, and it's enough to do a spa with people swimming in a spa, and you can get really inexpensive ones, and so it's like, okay, I can get this one that does 20 meg for 40, but look, I can get one that does 200 meg for $50. Let's get that one. It's more, better.
Yeah, can be trouble. Dano's Reef's asking, I have a new system, no water changes. It's been 3 months. I have 2 chromosomes and the water's a little green. Can I use carbon to clean the water? That sounds more likely like an algae bloom in your water, most likely. Usually, if it's a bacteria bloom, it's usually more white, cloudy. Green sounds like an algae bloom to me. Carbon won't necessarily get rid of that. I mean, water changes or may just go away on its own. I've never actually had that specifically. Have you guys dealt with, your tank turning green water tinge?
Yeah, I mean, it's how green. I mean, it's like, it depends on what somebody says. If it's like green, like pond green, you got some serious issues. Yeah. Especially 3 months in.
Yeah, if it's only slightly green, I mean, that is probably probably not bacteria. Probably like a slight algae or bloom that likely will.
I mean, you can have dinos too. Dinos can show like that too.
Do they show green?
Yeah.
In some
more than likely, I'm guessing if Dano wants to answer me, see if I'm right, but more than likely when he did his cycle, when he set his tank up, he left the lights on from day one, like most people do, and it's simply algae within the water column, and a simple fix for that would be if it's just got chromis, switch your lights off, do a blackout, don't feed that algae with the light that it needs, let the bacteria, get the extra trim that the algae is taking up, and you'll probably find when you switch the light back on after a few days that it'll be a lot clearer.
Yeah, so that's the thing too. Tanks take time.
Problems.
Tanks take time, especially the people running. You're running brand new real reef rock in it, and you're brand new this and brand new that, and it's everybody knows it's the patience game on a lot of this stuff. My 450 gallon tank didn't really start doing anything till a year into it.
Another thing too, when a lot of people cycle your tanks, leave that light off. If someone's cycling and there's going to be excess nutrients at first when your tank is cycling, and having your light on, all you're going to be doing is feeding algae and other potential stuff you don't want in your tank. So leave that light off. You got no corals. There's nothing that needs light, so just leave it off all cycles. Pro tip.
The other thing as well that's interesting. The reason I do a dark cycle on mine is because what I find is that whilst the initial stages of the algae is using free ammonia, you're then taking that away from the bacteria that you're trying to establish. So by running a blackout cycle, you're giving as much ammonia as you can to the bacteria, which is the thing that is paramount when you're beginning your tank. That's just going to establish your tank. So that's another reason I do that, is to give as much as I can to the bacteria.
Yeah. So Dano was saying no algae bloom, no lights, only for inspection.
All right, guys, I'm going to head out. So
yeah, sounds good.
Chatting with you guys as always.
No, thanks for hopping on.
Take it easy, Terrence.
We're almost at 2 hours.
Easy, guys.
Actually.
Thanks for putting up with me.
No problem. So
later.
Yeah, we are almost at 2 hours, so we probably will shut her down fairly soon. So if you guys have any specific questions, let me know in the comments. A few people will put a bag over it.
What's Dano meaning there? No algae bloom, no lights.
I think he's saying there's no algae in his water. You can still have an algae bloom in the water column that isn't necessarily stuff growing on your rock or on the sandbed, so that's still a possibility.
It's free floating, right?
CJ's that live footage of your tank? No, that's a video I recorded last week. I just recorded a 5-minute video on loop. I have done live streams in the past. Sometimes they get not 100% clear, so I just filmed in high res and just threw in the background. I'll probably change it up or throw a live one on for future ones, just to mix it up for fun. Yes, don't bother people with the light while cycling. Very, very true. This could be cheap glass. I mean, some glass will put a green hue on your tank, so I mean, that is actually semi-true.
Could possibly be the light as well, if it's not a blue tinge and it's more yellow.
A warm white?
Look a little bit green. Yeah, I'm trialing this Orphic Ocean at the moment, and the diode selection that Opha's done are quite interesting, and sometimes the tank actually looks yellowy green. And I'm presuming he's done it for a reason, because he's a clever guy. So interesting to see what the differences are of it in those spectrum ranges.
Okay, so Tom, is it better to run a night light on the tank, like channels on 1%, or to have them turn off fully at night? I turn mine off 100% at night. I fade to blues for like an hour or two at night, then the lights turn off 100%. Some people like the moonlights. I've always just turned it off. How about you guys?
Yeah, say if the tanks, this is where like my thing with carpet surfing fish, generally when you think about it and you get jumped out of the tank, it's when you're walking in the morning and discover it on the floor, right? And I think what happens is, because it's complete blackout with people switching the lights off in the room and in the tank, fish can get spooked, and when they get spooked, they just swim. They hit the glass and swim. Where if there's a little bit of light, then they get to see the shadows of the rockscape, so they can actually dive into the rock to hide rather than just blindly swimming. So if you think about the majority of people that do have carpet surfing fish,
I've heard that theory
in the middle of the night.
I think
so
mine
a tank cover or a little bit of light isn't a bad thing, really.
Yeah, what we do is we utilize the wall night lights, the very, very pale ones, and we typically utilize white, not blue.
And
yeah.
Fuck off.
So have you found any difference with that one, or is it by running those?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. It's very, very similar to.
Dano?
Who's that?
Language. And muted.
Oh no! I mean, it does the same thing. It's like a night light. Yeah, we utilize white instead of the blue.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. All right, guys. I think we got to most of the questions. I am hitting that 2-hour mark, so I think I'm going to shut it down for the night. But if you guys enjoyed this, be sure to hit that like button. And if you haven't done so, make sure you guys subscribed. And next week, I think we might dig into the whole nano microbubble sculpting. Sounds like it'll be an interesting kind of debate on.
No, it'll
maybe.
be a.
It'll be good.
Fight.
It'll be good. It'll be good. Yes. Give you guys a semi-sneak peek. I built a really cool optical auto top off for my nano tank for like $30. It's been I made it last week, and I've almost made a video on it. It's like 80% done. So I'll probably use it for next week's video, but I want to run it on the tank for a week to make sure there's no issues first. But yeah, it's been working awesome, ultra precise and cheap to build. So be probably Monday's video. So keep an eye out if you guys are interested in making your own optical, cheap, precise auto top off. Otherwise, thank you everyone for tuning in, and make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you all next week.
All right, thank you.